Okay. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Willington Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission. It's June 28th, 2023, 7:30. Well, is it 7:30?
7:36.
7:36 p.m. And all of our regular members are here and there are no alternates, so we'll move on to applications to be received. A is IW 23-5 application, construction of a single family home within the upland review area, 265 Turnpike Road, MBL 40/014-00. Owner J. Boland and S. Preston. Applicant G. Semperbon. Is there somebody here to talk about this to us? This is, we're just receiving this anyway, right?
Yes, so this is an application that was approved by the commission several years ago, and the permit expired and didn't fall under the extension timeframes that the legislature applied to various permits. It almost did. So they're coming back before you effectively to just have the same application reviewed.
Oops. Okay.
Can we see a site plan? Mike, I didn't see anywhere like how we used to be able to get to like the Google Docs and see all like the application information.
So when the agenda went out originally, there's with the application attachments at the bottom of the applications, there should be links to the attachments. I can certainly pull it up, no big deal.
Yeah, sometimes we were able to access like the drawings and stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah, that should be there, but let me pull it up.
It's because the links at the bottom of these apps for me are dead.
They shouldn't be. All right, let's see here. Okay. Site plan. All right, I'm gonna pull up the site plan here. Share my screen. Make it a little bigger.
Oh, I think I remember this. I'm not sure.
Give it a sec. So the entire trying to see if I can get rid of this. There we go. The entire structure is not within the upland review area, but they're encumbered on the front. So you can obviously see Bissonnet Pond. So then they have the upland review area in here, and then on the back side they have upland review area as well. So the structure itself, you can see the house footprint is there. So they've got a bunch of different things here. The 100-foot upland from a couple of different sides, but there is a lot of work that is also not within the upland review area. This is effectively the same plan that was presented. There's a few changes and overall reductions to the footprint, I believe, and a little bit of grading here to facilitate at grade access to the structure. But other than that, it is the same plan and the same house and the same septic that was previously reviewed.
Right. Now, I remember that Bissonnet Pond has 150-foot upland review area, which makes it a little more
Yep, and they're showing
interesting for
that.
designers.
Yep, I don't know why the text keeps popping, but they are showing the correct 150-foot upland review on the plan.
Right, I saw that. And there's a access road between the house and its
Yes,
and
Yeah,
its
that's-
septic system.
it's the existing road to the property to the north. I think it's north, yeah. So they've got to work within that, but it provides access beyond the property. So yeah, the septic's on the other side.
Right. And they can't move that septic system too much farther to the left, or else they get into a steep down gradient.
Yeah, and they also, I believe, yeah, so this is the 150-foot upland review from the Fenton. So they can't push it because then they'd be in the upland review for that.
Right, the two almost overlap.
Yeah, yeah. They've got, yeah, two uplands and they have flood zone. So they've got a lot of things to contend with, which is why I think the site plan hasn't changed since the last time.
Right, and it's a tight enough plan, so there's not anything that can be done with it. Except leave it the way it is.
Right. Yep, which is essentially what they're asking for.
Is that lot currently cleared, or are they gonna have to clear it?
That I don't know. I think it is partially cleared. They're showing some trees there and you can kind of see in the background, but it's not forested, my understanding.
Okay. Are they showing any ENS controls at all on this plan?
Yes, they are.
I think that's what that squiggly little line around the whole thing is.
Yeah, so you'll see kind of the limit of disturbance, and then they've got a ring of silt fence that kind of goes right around through here and comes back through. Tracking pad, anti-tracking pad. Their soil stockpile area is on the other side of the road, so it's just kind of as far out of the
Buffer.
it's not within the upland and you know, ways away from obviously the pond.
Right.
Dave, didn't we walk this property?
Yeah, we did
That was a while ago.
2 or 3 times, I think, for different houses
Mhm.
or different lots.
Oop.
Okay, is there any questions about this?
Not at the moment.
Was that Pat or was that Mark?
Patrick. Yeah, I don't have any questions either at this point.
Okay, so I think that I don't really see any problems with it any more than anything that we can solve tonight anyway.
Do we
I-
have, I'm sorry, David, do we have the old application and conditions that were put on?
We have it. It's not digitized, but we'll have it all scanned in and attached for when they come before you. Yeah, we can do
Okay.
that.
All right, thank you.
You know, we can't move on this tonight anyway, can we?
No, this is just to show you what you've got coming next time.
Okay, so let's move on to the next item. This is also a review, but we can accept it or receive it, but we can't act on it tonight. Am I right?
Yep.
So this is IW 23-8, application for property clearing associated with site access and parking area within the upland review area, 0 Depot Road. Applicant H. Sabia.
Okay, so I'm going to bring this one up for you to do a review, or you can see it. So, site plan. All right, rotate this around and share screen. So again, hopefully you can see this. This property is the parcel that is on the Tolland side of the condos on Depot, right before the Willimantic River, right before you go over the Willimantic River.
Right.
It's a large piece of property, and several years ago, more than several, in the 90s, there was engineering and approvals issued with flagging and all the necessary surveying to locate a proposed dwelling several hundred feet off the road on the sort of the high and dry spot, which is this plan here. The property owner is interested in, or the applicant is interested in purchasing the property and using it for recreational purposes, not to construct a dwelling. But because of the right of way, they need to just clear a very small access here so that they can essentially park their vehicles off the road. So I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. It's really hard to see with the line weights, but the wetland line kind of comes right through to here, and they're looking to just create a small parking area. This red spot here is the or the yellow, sorry, is they don't want antenna going any farther. So it's just to create a small parking location. Like I said, they're not planning on constructing anything on the property, but because it needed the approval, they want to have it from the commission before they purchase the property. It's not proposed to be paved. It's just minimal clearing activities so they can get some cars off the road. And the one thing that I didn't have a chance to get, but that we'll have for the next meeting is I just want to get some actual site photos just to kind of show you how this translates to the roadway. So we'll have those.
Okay, the thick black line there is a existing access road?
The thick black line was the proposed driveway to the house when it was originally reviewed. And so because that's the plan that has all the wetland flagging and topo, we use that. But they're not planning on doing any of that beyond that line.
That thick, that cross line.
Yep.
Okay.
Can they provide us with any sort of like detail of the size that they want? I mean, all we're seeing here is like a crayon drawing with a highlighter. I mean,
Right.
that's really giving us much information.
Yeah, I think they also sent in a narrative, and we've got we may have something that is a better sort of compilation, but we didn't have this actual plan, so we can try to translate all that onto this, and we'll get some photos and make sure we have that.
Okay.
So
Definitely in the floodplain area. And would this be in the aquifer protection zone as well?
I don't believe it's in the aquifer protection area, and it's not I don't think that there would be anything applicable because of the use. They will be up and out of, I think, the flood zone. We're in the process of receiving entirely new maps, new FEMA flood maps.
Yeah.
yeah, because they've changed them in the last 4 or 5 years. to
Yeah, we-
reflect the new realities.
Yeah, yeah. So we just saw those for the first time last week. But let me see. I think she's up and out of both. Get there. Depot. Yep. So they're not this doesn't fall, the activity that they're presenting, part of the property falls within the aquifer protection area, but this activity does not. It's mostly the condo, and there's a little bit of that sort of towards the top. And then
And they're just gonna build like a stone,
yeah,
like parking area? So
Yep.
they can access the land?
I think predominantly they just want to have a place where they can park their vehicles so that they can hunt or recreate or whatever. They're not running an electrical service. They're not building any structures. They're not putting in a well. There's no improvements proposed at all.
Okay.
So if they're talking about hunting, et cetera, then it'll be the P and Z that will have to deal with those kind of issues, right?
If they're just going to be using it personally for, like a lot of people do, we wouldn't need any permits for that unless they were going to be constructing something.
I was just thinking of noise down in the center of town there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think at least hunting was the plan, but I think it's just the two, and I don't think it's like when they're gonna have like groups of people hunting. I don't think they're gonna be doing anything too crazy. I think it's just the two of them.
Right,
But we'll find out more.
okay. We'll move on to approval of the minutes from February 27th.
Could you put those up on the screen, Mike?
Yep, I sure
So I
can.
didn't print that out.
I read it.
You're something.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm retired. Nah, 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 nah.
Thank you.
Okay, let me see. Where are we?
Yeah.
There we go.
I didn't see any issues with the minutes as written, just looking through them. Did anyone else have a comment?
No,
Good, look
I
good to
think it
me.
looks fine.
I'll listen to the motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve the inland wetlands water courses minutes from February 27th, 2023.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimous. So there's no public hearings open. We'll move to new business. Are we gonna? Is this timber harvest is connected to one of these wetlands permits, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So didn't we decide we did wetlands permits first?
You don't have to. You
Yeah.
can, I know that we've talked a lot and we heard from Darcy about, doing one application and then sort of doing a brain dump of everything you've talked about and trying to review the other one. And effectively, that's just it's not something that you can't do it.
It's a fantasy.
Right. So as long as you understand what comes from each and don't get out of bounds with what you're requiring. And in these cases, they're requesting jurisdictional ruling. So I think that at least for the point, at least for the applicant to present the project, it's easier to just explain everything, what the harvest includes, where there's potential overlap. It's, and also for, folks that are paying attention or watching the recordings, it's just much easier to understand what's being reviewed if we just consider it as a project.
Right. Okay, I'll just do them in the order they are and let it go. Let her rip. So, new business. A, timber harvest 23-2, selective timber harvest, 361 Tolland Turnpike Road, 22/018-00, owner Diane Becker, applicant James Halloran. I guess we'd have to listen to you, Mr. Halloran.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Your
So-
name and address for the record.
James Halloran, 74 Airline Road, Durham, Connecticut. Okay,
Thank
so, yep, no problem. So we have 3 parcels here, 3 contiguous parcels. It encompasses a good chunk of land, over 250 acres. And there is some wetland soils there, and there's some stream crossings involved. So if we have the map up. So I'll start just by saying this piece of land was bought by the Becker family from Whole Forest Products. They're a local sawmill, and they managed it before and had forestry in mind when they went out and designed a bunch of roads. So basically, everywhere that crosses a stream or a wetland area in the northern parcel 26004, is a built-up road with a culvert below it. So we won't have to establish any new crossings up there. The culverts are all in good shape. I did provide some pictures of them. They're free flowing. I'd estimate, I didn't measure them, but they look like they're 30+ inch culverts, so they can handle a lot of water flow. And so we're going to station 1 landing up in this northern parcel with access for the truck at the end of Liska Road, which is a dead end cul-de-sac with a gate there. So a truck would come in through there and go a few hundred feet into the parcel on a gravel road and have a landing up there. And then on the southern half of the job, which is on Town Turnpike Route 74, there's a large driveway there where we will have access for the truck through there, and another road leading from that landing north into the parcel. So there is a few, I believe that's the Fenton River and its associated wetlands that straddle the eastern boundary. And we're just going to have a buffer, a tree length, 50-foot plus buffer of any encroach into those wetland areas or the stream. That's all been marked. Boundaries are all marked. Skid trails are all labeled there. So luckily this land was really built up and maintained by Whole Forest Products, and it's still in good shape today. So we just have to make sure to be careful with equipment when the soils are saturated, when we get heavy rains. And but besides that, we have a great road system in there and a couple landings to minimize fording distance. Still be using a forwarder, 8-wheel forwarder, pretty big machine, but it displaces the surface pressure a lot. And this is a landowner that we're almost completing a job with over on Daleville Road, and he's pleased with the work. So he's just looking to continue on this piece and also the next piece, which we'll talk about soon.
All right, you covered most of the bases there.
Lister Road.
Yep.
And the Fenton River is on the east side here?
Yeah, I believe that's a fact.
Wetland complex.
Yep, and then also Curtis Brook flows east towards Fenton River. That's where most of the culverts are placed over.
Okay. And you stated you're going to keep a 50-foot buffer from the streams and the
Well,
wetland systems?
Yeah, so basically that wetland system follows the Fenton River. So it'll be further from the stream. It's mostly where the banks are, where it's flat. Not many large trees growing there. We're gonna leave, I usually like to go with the tree length because it's usually more than 50 feet. So basically anywhere a tree would fall within that area, just don't let it fall. That keeps things out of the wetlands, keeps things out of streams, so.
And the wetlands are happy with that too.
Yeah.
It's hard on a wetland to lose all its trees.
Yeah, they serve a great purpose there.
How is that in line with, I'm just looking up our forestry regs. Looking through that. Is that in line with our buffers? Okay. Vernal pool. All right, you're in line with the buffer regulation there. That's for sure. 50 feet or so, you said?
Yeah, at a minimum. Okay. Yeah. And on that southern parcel 2217, that whole stream area has a stone wall that's pretty much at the edge of the buffer, give or take. And we're gonna use that as a boundary. Don't cross that stone wall, so then you'll know very easily not to encroach.
Okay.
And then on the northern parcel, eastern boundary, I flagged it off, so they know not to cross.
Now on that landing right here that we're seeing down there near Route 74, is that
Yep.
like already existing cleared, or do you do some improvement there?
Nope, it's a pretty large driveway, like with the 2 entrances and exits. It's probably like 50 foot off the road and 100 feet wide. So the truck would be able to get off there. It's gravel, no problem. And then I believe they'll put the landing another like 100 feet up from the driveway on a already existing road.
So that's near that building that used to be a mill.
Yeah,
It was
correct.
rebuilt.
Yep, it's just east of that on Route 74.
Is there a way to bring that landing a little bit further into the parcel, back up from the stream at all? One of like those skid roads?
No, because the truck wouldn't be able to access it because of the steep terrain. So but that's part of that stone wall area as well. It's a gradual slope for probably a couple 100 feet, and then it jets uphill pretty quick. So we're gonna stay as far as we can at the bottom of the hill.
Okay, so you're saying there's already some, is that the road I'm looking at right there already? Kind of right in the middle?
Yeah.
So you're
Yep.
saying there's already some protection there from
Yeah.
the stone wall?
Yep. Yep. So kind of where, yeah, you see that clearing, slight clearing. They'll
Yeah,
take the truck up in there. Yep. And then there won't be much skidding, because basically there's an old road with the stone wall that follows the Fenton River there as you go up, as you continue up it. And it's pretty steep as well. I don't really anticipate any harvesting on that slope and anywhere past that stone wall. That's why the skid trail kind of meanders northwest there.
following the contours.
Is this gonna be a selective harvest?
Yeah. Yep. This landowner is just interested in managing most of his land now, getting some return on his mature saw timber. There's, yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
And those are already existing culverts that have been put in?
Yep. Yep. There's those three main ones, and then the southernmost one is kind of down slope with a drainage under it, which I never saw any water running. It was mostly dry.
For intermittent. Okay.
Yeah, yep. But there's still a culvert there, so that won't be a problem. And then the triangle of the three around the landing are all nice stone culverts, clear of debris. So
Okay.
and those will only be crossed by the machines. The log truck won't
Right.
be crossing anything. Yeah, that's a lot of weight. Okay, yeah, there's an example. These are some of the best I've ever seen on private property. So
yeah. Well, is there any other discussion here?
Nope. Mark, you have anything?
No.
Motion to approve timber harvest application TH 23-2, selective timber harvest at 361 Turnpike Road, 22/018-00, owner Diane L. Becker, applicant James Halloran. As stated in the application, I guess the condition, they stated they were going to have maintain those buffers. So as long as you maintain those buffers in accordance with the forestry regulations, I think you'll be fine.
okay, got it. Thanks.
And, yeah. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? I'm just gonna say, I noted in the regs that you, in the application, you said that you would be following the 2012 VMPs.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Abstentions? We have another unanimous one here. So now the companion piece from the Wetlands Commission, request for jurisdictional ruling on IW 23-3. A associated with a selective timber harvest with wetland disturbance. 361 Tallinn Turnpike 22/018-00, owner Diane Becker, applicant James Halloran. And now you pretty much went over all of this in the last one, of course,
Yep.
but we have to go through this part of the formality. You have to state your name and address.
Okay. Yep. So James Halloran, 74 Airline Road in Durham, Connecticut.
And is there any questions about the wetlands on this?
I think it was all
Patrick?
covered.
Yeah, I think so. So we just say no jurisdiction on this?
Well, it's an as of right activity, correct?
That's correct.
Right.
So you weren't planning on doing any harvest within the wetland areas at all? It's all going to be buffered based on the drawing, and you already have the existing culverts. You're going to keep the buffer from the wetland and watercourse areas according with the forestry regulations. So I make a motion to approve inland wetlands application IW 23-3 for a selective timber harvest at 361 Town Turnpike.
Second that.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Right.
Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. Move right on to timber harvest 23-3. Selective timber harvest 61 Cowles Road 016/26-00. Owner Lawrence Becker, applicant James Halloran.
All right. So here's the next one. Again, this is James Halloran, 74 Airline Road, Durham, Connecticut. All right. So we have the same landowner here, the Becker family. This piece isn't too far away. It's between Town Turnpike and, well, it's off of Cowles Road, off of Town Turnpike. Smaller piece here. We'll be harvesting around 70 acres of it. But in this one, we will have to build a stream crossing because there's no road or culvert existing here. So right in the middle of the property, there's a stream that flows through. That whole area where it crosses is mostly flat. And there is some existing, but not completely improved forest roads on each side of the stream. So we'll be utilizing those, and we're going to build a stream crossing with timber bridge mats, the like 16-foot by 4-foot hardwood mats that they make. So what we plan to do for the stream crossing is probably do about 75 to 100 feet of most likely corduroy, which is utilizing pole wood from the forest that they've cut, and laying that down as you approach the stream crossing. So on both sides, we'll probably have 75 to 100 feet of that. And then the bridge crossing itself, we'll have 2 timber mats that are running parallel with the corduroy. And then to get up over the stream, you use 2 more bridge mats rotated 90 degrees. That acts as a lane for the machines to get over. So basically that will be the deal on both sides of this. I'm pretty sure they want to, we're planning on moving to this piece soon after the piece that they're working on right now, which is directly north of this, off of Turnpike Road, or Town Turnpike. So this will be a dry summer job. The water there isn't running too heavily, which will be out of the water anyway, but that's always good. And then, yeah, just utilizing those 2 roads as ingress and egress from the stream crossing. The landing will be near the road on the landowner's property, and which is a field essentially. So the harvest won't be right up against the landing. They'll have to get north a little bit, and then the harvest area on either side of the stream. And then also in the northeast corner there, the top right corner, there's a little drainage, which we're going to use a similar system to cross corduroy. If it happens to be running fairly fast, they won't use that crossing. That's an area they can kind of go up and do while it's dry and be done with it and not have to go back. But the major thing there is that stream crossing. So I'll make sure everything's adequate there with the corduroy and the bridge, make sure nothing is in the water, there's no erosion around the banks. This is something this crew has done before, so I'm confident in them to do that again. And yep, this is another selective timber harvest. This area is used a little bit more for hunting, so the landowner does have some interest in attracting more wildlife. But besides that, same idea for the harvest.
So for the drainage crossing there, the orange triangle, what was your method for that?
Corduroy, because it's a pretty small thing. I think bringing those bridge mats in might disturb it more than using corduroy would, especially if it's just, dry. So that'll be laying the pole wood across, running parallel to the flowing water, but gets the machine up off of the banks and the rocky drainage area.
Are you going to leave that corduroy in place, or are you going to remove it afterwards?
Remove it.
And then talk about the methods for the stream crossing with the dual triangle. Is that going to be all timber mat or a little bit of both, of corduroy and timber mat?
Yeah, it's the crossing itself will be bridge mats, because that is an actually channelized flowing stream there. But
Okay.
we'll utilize the corduroy on the entrance and exit of it. So it kind of elevates the machine a little bit so it can get onto the mats more flush, and those areas are just more sensitive. So it's better to have some material down so it's not getting dug up by the machine, the tires.
Okay.
And that's all been marked. I marked where to start the corduroy, where to end the corduroy, and exactly the best spot to cross the stream where it's mostly flat on both sides with some rocks along the stream banks to help support the bridges.
Now, I was looking, would you leave that corduroy in place afterwards just to keep the stability of that bank and area, or would you remove that afterwards?
Sometimes we have left those along things such as stream crossings, but not exactly where it touches the stream, because I think it's best just to leave a little buffer from where the stream bank starts, maybe even if it's just like 10 feet or something. But because they do get some, depending what they use, they do get dug in kind of deep to the ground, so some pieces do get left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the research shows that leaving it behind is usually more deleterious than taking it out.
Hmm. Yeah.
I didn't see anything in there.
I guess there is another buffer area I should talk about on the eastern boundary.
Okay.
Yeah, and then part of this, basically why we couldn't skirt around that wetland area around there is because it's just filled with rocks and it's kind of steep, but it's all just boulders there. And so we're gonna have to use that stream crossing.
Okay, any further questions? Oh yeah, I have one. Now this one you were just talking about, the stream crossing. The eastern side, is that little square piece that juts out from the rest just above the landing? Or is it up by the major stream?
Up by the major stream. The part below is just a non-forested area.
Right, okay.
Yep.
Any further questions?
No. I was just looking in the regs to see if we had anything really quickly about the stream crossings and all that, but I can't seem to find it. Oh, there it is. Well, everything he's describing is common practice within the BMP manual.
Yeah,
Is that right, James?
Correct. Yeah, that's where I get most of my guidelines from, as well as the town-wide regulations.
which are very similar to the BMPs, because I helped
Yeah.
write the regs.
Yep.
Same.
Yeah, it's interesting how every town has its own regulations though, so I can't always rely just on the state ones. I always have to do a little research in the town. But typically, I mean, it's all just using your brain, and once
Yeah.
you get used to it, you know. Yeah.
All right. I'd like to make a motion to approve Timber Harvest 23-3 selective timber harvest at 61 Cowles Road, 016/26-00. Owner Lawrence Becker, applicant James Halloran, as described with use of the Connecticut Deep BMPs, and like he said, the stream crossings with the timber mats and the buffer provided on the map.
Mark, it's your turn for
Yes,
glory.
I will second that. Thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, it's unanimous. All right, IW 23-4. Request for jurisdictional ruling associated with a selective timber harvest with wetland disturbance at 61 Cowles Road. Owner Lawrence Becker, applicant James Halloran. This is the one we just reviewed and for the timber harvest.
Yes.
So do we have any reason for not granting the
The approval?
approval?
No.
Again, I believe this is an as of right activity.
Mhm.
So I'd like to make a motion to improve inland wetlands application IW 23-4, request for jurisdictional ruling associated with a selective timber harvest with wetland disturbance. Now, the one thing I noticed on the application is you had 0 for square footage of soil disturbance. So is that just buffer, or I mean, I don't want to make a big deal of this, but
Mm.
I want to make sure these applications are accurate. So
Okay, so is corduroy considered like a disturbance if it's temporary, or?
I don't think so.
no, okay. All right, so continue on. Motion to approve inland wetlands application IW 23-4 for selective timber harvest at 61 Cowles Road.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we're good.
All right, thanks you guys once again. Have a great night.
Thank you, James.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Let's see. The next one was timber harvest 23-4. I got confused with these numbers. They're all the same. Timber harvest 0 Tolland Turnpike 22-003-00. Owner Patrick Lehane, applicant Rich Zulik. Mr. Zulik,
Good
your
evening.
opportunity to come to the fore.
Okay, thank you very much. For the record, my name is Richard Zulik. I am a certified forester and a soil scientist. My office is located at 479 Tolland Turnpike here in Willington. And I represent Joseph Rendazzo, who's doing a timber harvest on the property of Patrick Lehane. And this property exists between the end of Common Road, or its cul-de-sac, south to Route 74 or Tolland Turnpike. The timber harvest that we're proposing is a 16-inch diameter limit cut. It has been marked. So the guideline for us was 16 inches and bigger for diameter breast high. The only harvest area that we're doing, it's a fairly large property, but the harvest area we're proposing is south of the stream or brook that you can see on the plan. The log landing will be at the southern end of Common Road. There is an existing road that brings it into an open area, and that's the yarding area where the logs will be pulled into, and trucks will be accessing that to haul out of there. The road going to the proposed brook crossing exists. It's an older road that was improved by the homeowner at some point with a small mini excavator. So it's a decent road that brings us into the crossing. The proposed crossing exists at a good spot where we've got significant banks on either side of the stream, preventing the relocation of that stream flow. We intend to practice best management practices as indicated in the 2012 Connecticut Field Guide. The brush and tops will be slashed to 2 to 3 feet from the ground. There is a steeper area at the southernmost portion of this property. The area that comes up to Route 74 is quite steep, and that prevented us from considering a log landing along Route 74. Any roads that are in the area of steepness will be log water barred, where they run perpendicular to the steep slopes to prevent any future erosion in those areas. The brook crossing is to be made with temporary bridge mats. We have, I think Joe has I think he has about 20 bridge mats. So we're only going to need 3, 4, 5 of them, but he certainly has access to as many as needed. And there probably will be some limited corduroying in the areas that are rocky. That area northeast of the crossing is pretty bony. So the mats may not work well on in the area adjacent to the brook. But I think that some corduroying is probably going to become appropriate as we travel through there with the machinery. The mats will be removed, of course, when we're done, and any corduroying that's been placed in that makes sense will be removed as well. And with that, I guess I'd open it up to any questions that you may have regarding this proposed harvest.
What type of machines do you use?
It's one of your more traditional rubber tired grapple skidders.
Mhm.
So it's gonna be the entire parcels within is the harvest area?
No, the parcel, the area south of the brook is
Okay.
the harvest area. We're not touching anything to the north of the brook. He
Okay.
wants to build a house there, and I think he just wants to see how it looks and kind of play it by ear. He may harvest that at a later time, but at this point, we're just doing the area on the far side or the south of the brook.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
We have, to just add, I probably should have mentioned, there is a good tree length distance between the harvest and the brook. We're not going to be cutting anything within the brook or wetland area, with the exception of the crossing itself. There's a couple of trees that we're going to have to take out.
Okay. And again, this is a selective harvest of 16 inches or more, right?
Yeah, it's a selective harvest.
You
16
said
inches.
16-inch DBH?
That's correct.
All right.
All right.
Any further discussion?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Hi, Catherine McCall, 64 Common Road in Willington. One of the questions that I had was, is a project like this, is there like a continuous monitoring from the town committee or from DEEP on a project like this?
So you're asking, do they go back year after year and check for regeneration and things like that?
Yeah, that's part of it. But while the project is like going on, is there like any type of monitoring just to make sure everything is within the boundaries that it's supposed to be?
I will
Like,
be
are
monitoring.
there checks that, you know what I mean? Do people come in and check on that just to make sure things are moving the way they're supposed to be?
I can jump in. So they notify, the operator notifies the town prior to the commencement of the activity so that we know when the work is actually beginning. And then from there, you know, we don't necessarily perform a set inspection on an interval basis of a week or every 5 days or something like that. But we typically will make sure that they're being conducted in accordance with the plan. As based upon this application and the ones that were previously before the commission, and I'm not going to speak for him, but Rick, in his capacity here, is effectively presenting this project to the commission as the responsible party. So he is the person with the knowledge and the certifications to manage the project. He's the one sort of guiding the activity, and all of this falls under the umbrella of best management practices, which are developed and enforceable by the state. The state has a forester, his name is Nick Zito, and they would be subject to enforcement from the state if there were any violations. And I want to make sure I didn't speak incorrectly for you, Rick.
No, absolutely. For the record, I am self-employed forester and soil scientist. I will assist many individuals with both development of properties and forestry projects. Joe Rendazzo has asked me to present this and to manage it. I take responsibility for it, and I will certainly be out there at least on a weekly basis to observe the progress and to resolve and or communicate with Michael regarding any issues that might come up.
Thank you.
So I'm an independent forester.
Okay.
So I don't work for any logger.
Understood. All right. And then the other question I had is that I I think the letter that I had received are actually on the map.
Yep. I see that.
It's, yeah, it states that it's gonna be, that the project is gonna go on in the dry season. Can you just explain?
Well, in that it involves a brook crossing, we always try to time this during the drier seasons of the year. Springtime would be a horrible time, generally speaking. So we're hoping to get in there July, August, be done by, by fall, and try to take advantage of low flow situations. It's not to say that we could have a gully whopper during the harvest, and we'll keep a close eye on things, but that stream crossing is the driving concern for the harvest.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right. Patrick, it's your,
I'd like to make a motion to approve timber harvest application TH 23-4, timber harvest 0 Talent Turnpike 22/003-00, owner Patrick Lahan, applicant Rich Zulik.
Second that.
any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I have to ask that, even though there's nobody to abstain. So it's another unanimous one there. We move on to IW 23-7, request for jurisdictional ruling associated with selective timber harvest with wetland disturbance at 0 Tolland Turnpike, 22/03-00, owner Patrick Lahane, applicant Rick Zulik. And once again, this is the one we just went through.
So again, I believe this is an as of right activity. Seems like the wetland disturbance will be minimal, and they're going to use the best management practices as described in the Connecticut DEP manual. And as one crossing, they're going to have buffer along the stream and the wetland areas. There's going to be no harvest within the wetland areas itself. So I make a motion to approve IW 23-7 as a right activity. Jurisdictional ruling associated with selective harvest. Timber harvest with wetland disturbance at 0 Tolland Turnpike 22/3-00, owner Patrick Lahane, applicant Rich Zulik.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It's passed. Okay, now we get down to the interesting part. Kathy, are you awake? Discussion, Fenton Ruby River beaver issues, Willington Conservation Commission. Hi, Kathy.
We think you're on mute.
You're on mute.
You.
There you are.
Very nice.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about some challenges we're having with beavers in Taylor Pond at Fenton Ruby Park. I'm sure most of you are pretty familiar with Taylor Pond. It's where the Boy Scout walking bridge is going across the stream, which is downstream from Taylor Pond Trail, for those of you who've walked it. The beavers have constructed a probably 3 to 4 foot tall dam at the outlet. And Mike is going to show you some pictures that I sent.
Jeez.
So
I don't see the snake, Kathy.
yeah, that's a great place for snakes on top of that dam. so that we're looking at Taylor Pond from the bridge itself.
Mhm.
And the concern that we're having is two things. One is because the pond level is gotten higher, if you go north of the bridge, the water's starting to back up into the forest and crossing one of the trails. So we've had to reroute the trail, which is okay, we can handle that. But of more concern is whether or not this size of a beaver dam could potentially cause some damage if there was a breach in a very bad rainstorm, if it broke apart and there was a lot of water flowing through and could undermine the walking bridge. And I think, Mike, the next picture will show the bottom of the bridge, if you still have that.
Hmm.
So you can see the beaver dam in the foreground, excuse me, in the back.
Mhm.
And then in the foreground, you can see where the water is coming into where the stream corridor is. And that water appears also to be getting higher because we think that the beavers are also damming it up beyond that stream area in more of the wetlands that flow later into the other small pond that's by the parking lot. So our concern is that we may need to bring the pond level down so that there isn't as much of a risk to the bridge over time. And we've been talking to some experts on beaver management. We really don't want to trap the beavers for many reasons. One is they're providing good habitat, wetland habitat, but we're also concerned just in general what could happen over time. And some of the experts talk about using what they call a pond leveling device. It's kind of an apparatus that you build with piping and fencing so that you can go into the pond and put in the piping about 40 feet ahead of the dam. And you enclose that piping that sits on the bottom of the pond with fencing that could be, 12 to 16 feet in length on the long ends. And you enclose that so that the beavers don't hear the water flowing anymore, because that's what triggers beavers to want to build the dam. And then you run the pipe basically through the dam itself. And you control the level of the pond by how high the pipe outlet is above, wherever you want to put that pipe, that will level the pond. So we're investigating this as a possible solution. We're working with some people that install these types of piping. Mike, if you want to go to the next picture, if you have that photo of the beaver solutions, and it kind of shows how the pipe would be extended out about 40 feet and 30 to 40 feet, and then you build a fenced in area for the intake. This particular picture shows a culvert inlet. That's not, we don't have that issue. We would just take the pipe and put it through the dam. We'd probably have to breach the dam somewhat, possibly with a small excavator. I've talked to Troy at Public Works about how we might be able to do this sometime this summer. And the beavers would probably just rebuild the dam over the pipe that we install, but it would let us control the pond level better. So I wanted to bring this to your attention so that we could get some idea of what we would need, if we would need a permit, if we would basically come back to you as a commission, or we would work with Mike as the wetland agent. So if you have questions, let me know.
I think the deep has to have some input on this.
So I did contact the wildlife biologist at Deep who's in charge of beaver management. And he told me that the only thing that they regulate is the trapping part of it. If we wanted to trap, we would have to get a licensed certified trapper that they already, that has a listing with Deep. And then we have to get a permit from Deep, and we only have a 2-week window, which we can do the trapping out of season. So if it was in season trapping, which is in the winter, we would not need that permit. But if you're out of season, you need the Deep permit.
Right.
Yeah, he told me the rest of it is within wetlands purview. So if we want to try to deconstruct the dam, the beaver dam, which would release more water into the stream, then we would need permission from inland wetlands.
So if I could provide a little food for thought, I'm the wetland agent in Tolland, and I am having.
They just
deja
put
vu
one
'cause-
in.
Huh?
They
Yes.
just put one in.
I did connect Kathy with some of the I don't know, their pros and cons, or their successes and failures. But the perspective that we have taken with that, and our language here is similar. In our regs, it's section 4.2a. It talks about the conservation of soil, vegetation, water, fish, and wildlife. And I've gone over this with Darcy Winther multiple times. Sometimes the activity is to facilitate the proper conservation of an area or an ecosystem. And if this water continues to back up, the trees will die, and habitat will be lost, and all in the name of a couple of beavers. So others have taken the approach that these activities are more or less necessary to continue to preserve the habitat as it has been. And it's permitted as a non-regulated use, and it doesn't require permitting.
I will say that the new alternative overflow that the beavers have created, that was quite a ways up the trail, is going to be a washout danger in the future, because there's nothing stabilizing that area, and it's not designed for overflow.
Mhm. Yeah.
So bringing down the water level, I think, is very important to maintain the pond in a reasonable fashion.
Yeah, I mean, our goal would be to work with the beavers. So we would bring the pond level down. So there's still about 3 feet of water in the pond.
Yeah.
And so they could still have, viable habitat. Hopefully they would be happy with that and wouldn't try to do
Yeah.
things, dam things up in a different way. We will have an issue with the downstream side, though, because I am not sure we can get to where that dam site would be downstream of the footbridge.
The little dam that's down below.
Yeah, because that's somewhere in that big wetland complex. And I don't believe there'd be a way for us to get in there to put a pond, so to speak, pond leveling device in that dam. The only one we could probably do is the one in Taylor Pond.
The downstream one, you can see part of it from the bridge.
Mhm. Right, but I think it's backed up even beyond that. I think
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Many years ago, I took my kayak up through those little pathways there, and there's quite a few little steps of beaver dam until you get down to the lower pond.
Mhm. Yeah.
That contraption you're speaking of in smaller circles is called the beaver deceiver.
Mhm. Are you familiar with them? Have you dealt with them before?
I've seen them, and they're used just for this situation. So
Right. The old Farms Road has one on it.
Hmm.
A similar, well, it's maybe a different design, but it's the same idea.
Mhm. Yeah, there's if you go online, the Beaver Institute, it's Mike Callahan out of Southampton, Massachusetts. He's kind of the guru of beaver deceiver design. He's done a lot of them for different places. He's got a lot of information on the website, and we can do it ourselves if we wanted to do it. Public Works said they would help with the construction, and they have some materials. We would probably use volunteers, but to have to bring the pond level down so that we could work there to put the fencing in. So that's one of the reasons I was coming before inland wetlands, just to, as Mike was saying, it seems to be a non-regulated use for the piping, but if we needed to breach the dam a little bit to bring the, to start with, to bring the pond level down so we could get in there and work.
Right.
I would just say, methods and means, if you're bringing heavy equipment, then certainly, I mean, that's a pretty tight area. It's heavily vegetated. So
Mhm.
I guess you would have to look at your methods and means of how you're going to do that.
Okay.
Right. The machine has to be small enough to get in there handily and yet big enough to reach halfway across the dam to open it up.
Right. I mean, you can breach it by hand. You could get in there with a potato rake and
Oh,
pull it apart, but I'm not sure how much we could do that way without the beavers just reconstructing it overnight. And so that's why it may be, if we're planning to put in the beaver deceiver, like let's say on a Saturday, if we could get in there with an excavator, and Troy thinks he could do it fairly easily.
Yeah, it won't take very long.
Yeah.
no.
And then he, not that we would breach it so much that we'd have a big flooding event there, but just enough so the beavers aren't going to reconstruct the whole thing overnight.
Right.
So,
Well, you have to breach it. You'd have to breach it somewhat in order to get that pipe through.
mhm,
Right.
Right. Right.
Unless you can bring in one of those big augers that they use to put pipes under roads.
Hmm. That would be interesting.
I'm just like brainstorming here. If you did breach it completely, installed the control device, then they would come back and build that anyway, is the thought process. So if you slowly pulled that dam down so it didn't all come through at once
Mhm.
to the desired depth you wanted, I'm just thinking how you'd be able to achieve that.
Hmm.
I don't think you could fool them.
I'm not sure if we pulled the whole thing apart, then we wouldn't have anything to rest the pipe on and control the
Right.
level. So we'd have to figure out how much we'd have to pull off the top of the dam. Let's say the pond level's 5 feet and we need to bring it down 2 feet to get to that 3 feet left depth that we can work in and put the fencing in.
Yeah.
And we'd have to pull the dam apart probably 2 foot a second off the dam and then rest the pipe there.
Okay.
We have to do a little more calculating, and I'll get out there with some kayaks and see what the pond depth is now, how much we'd have to bring it down. So there's still some work to be done.
Mark probably knows how deep that pond is.
And if it's something I need to come back to you for, or if I can work with Mike and how we would do that.
Yeah, I agree with Mike that I think you're covered under 4.2A. If you do want to, work with Mike, he can, I'm sure we'll hear about it, and just have him communicate with us and what you guys decide to do. We can go from there. But my thing is, the means and methods, how you going to actually do it, and the in-water work, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we'll let you know, and maybe you'd like to come out to volunteer and help. see it right at the source.
I'll get my hip waders on that have holes in them.
Yeah. Mike,
Yeah, well, the thing about hip waders is that when they're full of water, you go down.
Yeah.
might get
They're
hot
small.
that summer. Might want to take a swim.
They're small holes, Dave. They're small holes. Controllable.
Yeah, by not going in the water.
And I want to apologize. I don't think I introduced myself at the beginning. I'm Kathy Demers, for the record, chairperson of the Conservation Commission. Sorry.
Okay.
So are you
Okay.
looking, excuse me, are you looking at reducing the height of the secondary dam first to try to drain off some of that water before you breach the upper dam?
I think we might have to do that. We'd have to look at it again, see how much water, what the depth is there. Because as Dave had mentioned, there is a small beaver dam there as well. But it's not a very tall one.
Does it look like there's a lot of activity there, or have they moved up?
They're in Taylor Pond. They have a lodge there now.
All right.
Yep. So I think they're in there for the long haul. They may even have kits right now. We haven't been out there to count the number of beavers, but I've seen at least 2. But I don't know if there's young ones.
All right.
There's a lodge in the lower pond by the parking lot too.
Yeah, that's been there a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they definitely did move up into Taylor Pond. So.
Yeah, I think Mark brings up a good point. If you don't remove that lower dam, I think that probably needs to be removed probably completely. What's the point of putting in something that's just going to fill up between the 2 dams?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that could hazard. Yeah, that could hazard the bridge as well. The other thing is I'm trying to talk to our town engineer to see if we should look at that bridge as well and see if there's a way to reconstruct it over time so that we don't have the posts actually down on the banks of the stream. I don't know if there's another way to build something that's more suspended or that actually is supported more further along, as the trail is on the actual trail. And that's something we'll look at too.
Does Carl still work for the town?
Yep.
Yeah. He's a dam expert.
He is. I don't know about beaver dams, but he's definitely a dam expert for man-made dams.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, just keep us posted.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Kathy.
Yeah, thank you for giving us something that we could enjoy listening to.
I wish I had a video of the beavers for you, but wasn't in the cards.
Next time.
Okay.
Okay, so we don't have any old business correspondence.
We do not have any correspondence.
Oh, staff discussion and report.
The only thing that I guess I can mention, we've talked a lot about timber harvests and the whole process. And one of the things I was talking about with Nick Zito to confirm, because it's not immediately clear if when an application for a timber harvest is submitted that requires an associated wetland application, if you have to wait the 15 days. And it's on the wetland side, because a jurisdictional ruling is not a permit, you don't have to wait the 15 days, but because under the, with the forestry regs, you're a wetland commission. So the question, I wanted clarification, and he spoke to some folks and confirmed that you didn't, which is why all these were in front of you. But one of the things that we were talking about is that we obligate the foresters and the people applying for timber harvest applications to submit abutters letters when they provide their application. Because we don't wait the 15 days, in many cases, they're getting notification of their via an abutters mailing maybe a day or two before the meeting, or maybe a little bit more. Then they come to the meeting, but there's no mechanism for public participation because it's not a public hearing. It's a timber
Yeah.
harvest jurisdictional ruling. So I told him that I thought it would make more sense if the regulations required that the operators notify the adjacent property owners prior to the commencement of the activity. Because we get a lot of calls because someone will get an approval and it's 8 months before they start. And next thing you know, these trucks show up, and forestry is not a beautiful thing when you look at it, right? It's loud
what-
and it's ugly.
Butchering the woods.
Yeah, and so people are very alarmed. I mean, we've had cases where properties that are adjacent to a timber harvest have transferred ownership from when they get a permit to when they start. And so the new owners aren't aware because they weren't the recipient of the abutters list. So I told them that I thought it made sense that we have these notices go out saying, hey, we've received this approval and we intend to commence the project at this time, which he seemed to agree. Not saying we're going to jump back into modifying our regs, but he acknowledged that there's a bit of a rub created by the requirements because you send people a notice and tell them you're going to have a meeting, and then when they show up to the meeting, they can't speak.
Yeah.
So other than that, all's been fairly quiet. Nothing overly actionable that I can think to report on.
We did allow that woman to speak tonight.
It's true. And
And I think that the commission can give people permission to talk.
I think, yes, you have some flexibility. I think where it would be a little bit more concerning is if that person was creating a discussion that then turned into you having a different perspective or trying to treat the application differently. But in the case of the person that was here earlier, I think she was really just looking to be educated on the process. It seemed like she just
Right.
wanted information and was happy to receive it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that type of a dialogue.
Right, well, we do have the mechanism of having the hearing if there's substantial public interest.
But for the jurisdictional ruling, you can't. Because it's not a permit. So you're
Yeah.
basically you're just saying, we acknowledge that we don't have, and you, that was what Nick was trying to confirm for me. You can't, on the wetland statutes, a resident could petition as an intervener and force a hearing and all these things for a wetland application. It's a jurisdictional ruling, they can't. And for timber harvest, they can't. So that's why you don't have to wait the 15 days, because nobody can make you have a hearing.
Right.
So it's yeah.
Yeah, so it is, there is that dead end there.
Yeah, but yeah, there's I guess there's a lot of towns in other parts of the state that are very anti timber harvest, period. Particularly as you get into the southern reaches of the Connecticut River corridor. And so there's a lot of things that they would love to improve about the act itself, but there's a lot of concern that if they were to even suggest changing anything, that some of these anti-forestry towns would use that as an opportunity to do what they could to make it so that it wasn't an as of right activity. I think people have just become very opposed to the entire thing. So there's not a lot of confidence that if they wanted to try to make it better, it wouldn't end up being made worse by the legislative process.
Right. Just as one other note, completely separate from what we've been talking about, is I saw that the Supreme Court has whittled down the regulations once again. They I'm trying to remember exactly the wording on it. Anybody else hear that they made it so that you can do less, the commissions can do less in the upland review areas than they could last year.
I'm not aware of anything.
Yeah, I'm still trying to digest that ruling, so.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a good handle on it yet.
Hey, just looking back from our February meeting, whatever happened with there was an issue with some filling. Was it
Right. I was curious.
where was that, Dave? You saw it. Where was it up on
That was off 320.
Oh, yeah, on 320 near where,
Oh, Degata.
yeah,
Yes.
So, actually, Rick Zulik, a couple of years ago, he had a delineation done and prior to the construction or permitting of that barn. And so that fill pile, which we have connected with him on and he understands he needs to remove and is working to remove, is not located within proximity to a wetland. There's a delineation that we have in the file. It's prior to me. But when you look at the wetland map, it'll look like that's where it is, but the delineation that was done shows that it's not within that area. There was some work also done next door, the neighbor, and we sent him a notice as well. And he came in and was a new homeowner and not really aware of the process and what was regulated. And we stopped it before he was able to really get close to like any wetland areas. If you go by, you'll see he's got all of his hay bales up. He's really just trying to do some top grading of his property. So he submitted his permit within 2 days of getting the notice from us. And was very apologetic. I don't know who had the property before him, but he said that there's a lot of miscellaneous debris sort of just buried just below the surface of the dirt, and he's trying to get grass. So was just doing some finished grading, but that's where those two are.
I think that that other piece used to belong to one of Degata's relatives.
On the to the left of his house.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's possible he hasn't. The gentleman there hasn't owned the property very long.
right.
So we
Okay,
went through everything, got that stuff taken care of, told him what he needed to do, and I think we're on the up and up.
Great.
great. So the next item on our agenda is public comment. Now it seems like everybody but Kathy has left us.
I do have a quick question.
Oh,
Yeah, just regarding forestry regulations in general. Does the applicant have to identify vernal pools on the property? And what's the setback if that's, what is suggested for best management?
I believe the buffer zone is 50 feet from a vernal pool.
Okay.
50-foot buffer.
And they're supposed to supply that information on a map when they put their application in?
To the best of their ability, right, guys?
Yeah, the thing about a vernal pool is if you go at the certain time of year, it's obvious that it's there, but the rest of the year, it doesn't have to, it's not even visible sometimes.
Right. I know, and the foresters aren't soil scientists that would have more necessarily. I mean, they might be a little more aware, but they're not soil scientists that are going out and demarcating those areas. I mean, they're going by our soils map for wetlands is when they're bringing in their applications. How do they know where the wetland buffers are? Are they just using our maps?
Yes.
An educated eye, I think, is what it is most of the time.
Mhm.
I mean,
Okay.
they don't want to get into the hassle of having to defend their license before the state. So they try to do a decent job for the most part.
Sure, yeah.
well, and the other thing with the vernal pools, they all try to cut when it's driest, so, hopefully at that point, there won't be disturbances within those areas.
Right.
Right.
Wouldn't be disturbing the pool itself, but just that envelope, that 25 or 50-foot buffer,
Mhm. Maybe
in
they're
that-
not able to recognize it.
Yeah,
Well,
that's,
It's very possible, like Dave said, depending on what time of the year you're in there
Mhm.
assessing the property. I mean, the spring is when you'd be more likely to see it, but there are indicators, wetland plants and so on. But again, they're not soil scientists. So I was just curious, it's just that vernal pools are kind of being more and more threatened. And we don't have a good handle on where they are in town. We don't have mapping of vernal pools in
Mm.
general. So trying to work with foresters and landowners to try to educate them and try to protect some of that envelope is just important. So I was just wondering if there's an opportunity when you do forestry applications, if you can just maybe raise that question, are you aware of any vernal pools, just to ask the question.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm. Thank you.
thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the as of right, forestry can harvest trees within wetlands and all that too.
Yep.
It's not
Right.
like they can't go into a wetland to harvest trees.
No, they can. But like some foresters and landowners, if they understand, they might be more willing to protect some buffer anyway, if they're aware of a vernal pool. That was, it's just that process of working with people. They're not required to, but some of them are taking things seriously. I mean, they care about the habitat and the long-term use of the
Yeah.
property. Yeah. Okay, thanks. And that's
You're welcome.
the other thing too. Just going back to vernal pool protection, I know that we have standards at the town level that you utilize when we're looking at other applications, inland wetlands permitting, and we have vernal pool regulations. Have you considered, and I know it's hard because you don't have a lot of members now, but have you considered looking to see if those are still in line with current BMPs? So that was just a question mark.
Well, I will say this about that. The BMPs have not been updated in a long time by the state.
Hmm.
For instance, our forestry regs are based on the 2012, which are the most recent.
Hmm.
And obviously, things could have changed in the last 11 years.
Mhm.
Mike, do you know if the state sends information out when they update some of those BMPs to inland wetlands, for example?
I don't know that they would just provide it. I mean, the state on the wetland side, they haven't even updated their legal cases or important changes since 2019. I mean, and we've had, it was more recent than that our forestry regs were approved. So if there were more up-to-date documents that we should have been referencing, I think that they would have flagged them at that point, because we didn't have, it wasn't signed by the commissioner until June 1st of 2020.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So
and they, when Tess and I were working on it, they took a long time to review the stuff we sent them, because they don't have any employees anymore.
Yeah, I know. Everybody's really resource poor right now. Okay, well, thanks. I just thought I'd bring the topic up because it seems like activity-wise in town, we're not having a lot of development right now. We're having more and more timber harvests. So just curious. All right, guys. Good night.
Okay,
Thanks. Good night, Kath.
good night. So who wants to call the adjournment?
Make a motion to adjourn the Willington Inland Wetland and Watercourses Commission, June 28th, 2023 meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Uh,
I abstain, no,